Hello, friends. Thank you for joining me today. We are ready to go. Entering Final Edit Daily Art Adventure number 573. Read it and weep. Thanks for joining me today. It's a nice chilly spring morning, afternoon, here in central North Carolina. And I'm excited about this painting. Can you see the whole thing? Yeah, pretty much. A little bit higher, a little bit lower. And then you get to see my wonderful garage. It's a very functional garage, shall we say. And I'm ready to enter the all-important final edit layer. Now, it's not really all-important because all of the other layers are also very important. But this is the mother of all layers, to quote, world leaders of past day, of yesteryear. While you were gone, if any of you were watching yesterday, I started the fuzz layer up there in the sky. I did that last night with much pontificating. You can go back and watch it if you want. Thanks to several of you who said you actually liked my pontificating. Blessings on you. And since then, I've done fuzz layer. I've discovered something, It takes longer to do big paintings. Who'd have thought? So doing the fuzz on all this takes quite a bit longer than it does on a much smaller painting. Finally did it. Finally got it done though, and I am Yahoo ready to enter, as I said, this final edit layer. Now, for many years, the final edit layer was in fact the final layer. But here's how things happen when you're a growing artist, an evolving artist. Things happen. And I now have at least 2 layers after the final edit layer, if not 3. One is intentional messiness, another is broken color, and the third is, after all of that is dry, final glazing, final glazes layers. But still, this layer right here, which will take me some time, that's why I've called this on the clapper. That's a clapper, right? Anyway, I called it Final Edit 1, because they'll probably do more than one broadcast. All right, for those of you who are keeping score or perhaps trying to imitate, emulate, learn from me a little bit, let me be clear. Where do you start the final edit layer? There used to be 4 options. The fuzz layer has taken care of one of those, that being local color, because now I correct. Great improvement. Now I improve I correct all the local color issues in the final edit layer, which is a lot faster than fixing them in the final edit layer. Did I say no? I think I misspoke. Hang on. I correct all the local color. Local color to us artists means realistic color. Roses are red, violets are blue, sky's blue, grass is green. Local, real color. I correct all those issues in the fuzz layer. That's what I meant to say. So that by the time I get to the final edit, that's all done. And that, in fact, is done. So that, as I was saying, that's a great improvement in my painting technique in the last year or so. So now there are just 3 places to start the final edit. One is the traditional oil painting. Let me back up just. Final edit now is opaque, light opaque highlights. Light and opaque. And those 2 terms are so closely related that I don't actually need to say them, because you all know, wink, wink, you all know, don't you, that if it's opaque, it's light, and if it's light, it's opaque. So to say light opaque is redundant, I know, but I'm only saying it for those of you who might be new to my channel. But stick around for a while, and you should say, I wish you'd stop saying light opaque, because you know those 2 terms go together. Anyway, so the final edit is light opaque. Therefore, I'm at this point starting to paint more like a traditional 20th century oil painter. By the way, one of the ways to deal with cold weather when you have to paint is make sure you have something hot to drink. It's not freezing out here, don't get me wrong. You can see I'm just wearing a vest, a painting vest. At one point, this was not a painting vest, you understand. It did not have paint on it. And then one sad day, it got paint on it. From then on, it's painting clothes. Okay. So traditional painter, 20th century painter, paints opaque. And when you do that, you paint with the furthermost object, which is in a landscape is always the sky. You paint the sky, and then in this case, the buildings and the trees and the bridge and the road, and you move forward. That's one approach, and that's one option, option number one. Option number two is start with the brightest, lightest, whitest thing, and then go mid-tone from there, go darker from there. Start with the brightest thing and go down. Third option is start at the focal point and kind of work out as if consecutive circles of a target. And today, because the sky, many times when I do a pink underpainting in the sky, I'll start my final edit in the sky. But today, because the fuzz layer has largely corrected the color of the sky, you can still see a lot of pink peeking through, which is very important for it to peek through. But that doesn't irritate me, so I can wait for that. I am going to start with what I think is going to be the number one focal point in this painting, which is this area right here. Stretching perhaps a little bit into this building, but here, secondary here, and then everything else, a lot of energy elsewhere, but all of that energy subservient to this energy. That's my favorite word. What is a focal point? It's more than just, as some people might say, it's where the lightest meets the darkest. That's one element. Let me give you a better definition of focal point. First of all, not all paintings have to have a focal point. I think David Dunlop, look him up. He harps on that, rightly so, periodically, I believe. There is such a thing as paintings without a focal point. That's not this one. But a better concept is to use the word energy. Energy is what attracts your eye. And energy consists of several things. Now, this is a very quick list, so it's not necessarily exhaustive or in order. Here's what creates visual energy. Contrast, hard edges, intense color, sight lines or major shapes, composition. I was thinking about this yesterday and earlier today, that many times sight line is a better word because a sight line has the notion of, for instance, if I hold up a hand here and hand here, okay, and I say to you, can you see me? Yeah. And I say, what shape are my arms making? Some of you would say a Y, okay, or a V. Some of you would say a triangle. And I can tend to think, so you're imagining and then a line up here between these two fingers, between these two hands, creating a triangle, okay? That line that isn't there up here between 2 points, that's what I'm calling a sight line. That is like sights on a gun. It's sights that you see, but it's not there. So in a painting, there are lines like that can appear across shapes. I don't even see any here necessarily, but that's another thing that can create a focal point. So what did contrast, hard edges, color, composition / sight line, and finally, there are emotional or psychological focal points. This painting, not so much. But let's just imagine if I put a hitchhiker right here, which I'm not going to do. If I put a hitchhiker right here, a figure this big, suddenly, no matter how subtle I painted him in there, he would draw to himself or herself huge amounts of psychological energy, because we'd see building, whoa, person. Well, let me tone that down even a little bit. If I put a dog running across the road, same thing. So all these things come into play when you talk about focal point. It's not just contrast. Better word is energy, and the psychological energy is a different category, but it's still something you have to pay attention to. All right, so I'm going to start right here, and let me zoom in here for a minute so you can see. First, you see my two go-bys that are barely, I've got them stuck up there with packaging tape. They're barely holding on because, of course, this now has a thin layer of oil on it. But let's get started right here. You can see I'm quite happy with the way this looks as it is right now. But in the final edit layer, I'm going to pump that up quite a bit. Again, let me just, for those of you who may be joining me late, this is a photograph of the scene, and I put a grid on you. You can't see it probably on your monitor. There's a grid there, and I used a grid to get this. Very unusual for me, but just the easiest way to get this particular job done. This, on the other hand, is a previous painting. A painting that I've done earlier of the scene, and that's actually informing me compositionally more than the photograph is. All right. Oh, let me just for fun show you my palette before it gets a big mess. Here it is. This is my liquid, and it's going to run as soon as I hold it up like this. Okay. I do my colors rainbow order, starting in violet, going around to ultramarine. So the rainbow order, or color wheel order, if you will. Then I do my browns, light to dark. I only have two up here right now, yellow ochre and oxide red. Funny that it's called yellow and red, but they're both browns. They're neither yellow nor red, they're browns. I do my browns in order from light to dark. So often my first brown will be a Naples yellow, as a matter of fact, which is not yellow, it's brown. I'm not going to beat that horse to death. As I said, we'll be up to our armpits in dead horses before we know what hit us. So let's just move right on from there. Mixing up a warm, very warm white. I don't know if we can even call this white. It's a very, very pale. A little bit paler than Naples yellow, as a matter of fact. But it's not white. This leaves me what's on my brushes. I can get lighter yet, which is very important. Okay, quick glance at the photograph. Yeah. Now, I think you like me, when I look at this bridge, this area, the lights there look fairly light already, do they not? It doesn't look like it needs a lot of lightening. But watch what happens as soon as I put, and I have to decide where I'm going to put this. As soon as I start putting some thicker, opaque, warm white, it's like, oh my goodness, whoa, that is a lot lighter than what was there. Do you see how that jumps out? Now I'm already modeling, perhaps for some of you, some good painting. First of all, let me zoom out a little bit. I know I said this a couple weeks ago in the last class I was teaching. I know how many of you would do this. First of all, you'd hold the brush like this. Then you'd stick out the tongue. It's very important. And you'd go like this. Right? Okay. Don't do that. Don't ever do that. Don't let me catch you doing that. Okay. So what am I doing different? Well, first of all, I'm painting with the blade of the brush, not the point. And can you see all these little gaps that I'm leaving already? I'm not doing long, boring, contiguous, steady strokes. One of the most, for me, one of the most, the mantras that I repeat most often in painting is this: the essence of good painting is making interesting marks. And that is what I'm trying to do. Now, for you students, this is going to be the hardest part of your art journey, is coming to see, recognize, first of all, recognize, spot it when you see it, and then learn how to do it, how to make interesting marks. What does that mean? I don't get it, you might say. What are interesting marks? Man, good question. I don't blame you for asking it. In a way, almost impossible to define. Dang. Sorry to not be more encouraging than that. But it's easier for me to describe what are not interesting marks. And I've got an expression I just stumbled on a couple weeks ago. Let me repeat it here. You cannot make beautiful marks. I just changed my terminology slightly from interesting to beautiful. You cannot make beautiful marks while making ugly movements. Let that sink in just a little bit. Okay, got it? Can't make beautiful marks with ugly movements. And pray tell, what doth? He slips into Old English for some unknown reason. What doth an ugly movement make? What makes a movement ugly? This part you can grasp. Let me tell you how ugly movements are made. They're made with an excess of fastidiousness, stiffness, excessive caution, hesitancy, insecurity, wishy-washy attitude, uncertainty, fear. Even I could expand that even to feelings of inadequacy. We all feel inadequate. Just don't let your hands paint like you're inadequate. Don't make inadequate marks, as if the person whose hands are attached to is apologizing for living. So it's not impossible to define ugly marks. A little bit harder to define than what are good marks. I'm going to put these I'm going to put these white brushes down for a minute and pick up a couple other brushes. This is the one downside, perhaps, of painting with two hands, is you you continually have twice as many brushes to clean at the end of each phase, each stage of the painting process. That is one downside. It's a price I'm willing to pay myself. All right, so I'm mixing up some red. Now there's a big inaccuracy here in my drawing, in my painting. And you can say, well, was it a mistake? And the answer is, well, maybe, yeah. I sort of didn't notice that much till right now. But in the photograph, this red, it's steel, painted red, is actually a very narrow band. It widens down here, but then it's skinny, and I'm doing it much fatter than it really is. But I like it. I like the energy. Remember the word energy? I like it because it's the red, the intensity of the red creates a lot of visual energy right here in the area that I think is going to end up being my primary focal point. I'll use the verbiage that way. Primary focal point will be this area. And so the fact that my red beam, steel I-beam, is wider than real, wider than in actuality, I'm probably okay with that. Even though on the other hand I can admit, yeah, it was kind of a mistake. But it's one not worth fixing. Does that make sense? And I really do I wonder often if some mistakes like that are intuitive because I do think it's better having this red fatter than it is in reality. Because, again, because it creates energy. Okay, now before I leave this red, before I put these red brushes down, I'm going to do that old trick. Again, for those of you who watch me, you've heard this before. Once you enter the opaque realm, now understand, of course, that most painters, traditional oil painters, they're in the opaque realm from the get-go. But if you paint like me, no, everything up to this point, almost everything's been transparent. So we have just now entered the opaque realm. So once you enter the opaque realm, then you can do this trick, if you will, if I can use that word. All this red that I just put down a minute ago is all the same color, all from the same pile of paint on my palette, right? Therefore, that's not a good thing, because variety is of one of the highest values, visual values, in a painting. But it's a very easy fix, because I have just mixed up a batch of pale orange red, lighter, slightly lighter than what was there. And all I have to do is slap some of this down, if you will, on top of the red that I just put there. And then everything's okay. Like I say, every little thing gonna be all right. Can you see that? Can you see how that we get a vibration then? We get energy because of how the two shades of red. Now you could say, well, if you do it once, would it be better to do it twice? And the answer is yeah, sometimes. Let me mix up even lighter than the last batch. And it has to be slightly, it can't be a whole bunch lighter, just a little bit lighter, and generally speaking, it has to be right on top of the previous color. Does that make sense? So now I'm introducing even a third, even lighter red, if you will. And generally speaking, when you want red to go lighter, you also have to make it go yellower. Otherwise, it will turn into a pink that is probably not what you're after. So the color I'm putting on right now is actually very definitely a red-orange. It's not just a red with titanium white added to it. Now, I'm going to go back to I wanted to do that before I got too much further with the white. I'm going back to the white brushes now. I'm going to play exactly the same trick. That is, whatever color, all this that I put up here is all the same color, which is not a good thing. So I'm reaching over here. You don't have to watch me do this. Just to pick up some titanium white and add it to the pile that I was painting with earlier. Doesn't take much. And let's see if this is lighter. I mean, is light. Let's see if it's light enough to discern, if you can even see the difference. If you can, I'll have to add more. No, I don't think, I think I can go add more titanium. And again, just a reminder for newcomers, my white is always, except sometimes in the late stages, I'm looking for my tube of white. Here it is. It's alkyd white, fast dry titanium white. So that I have the freedom to slap down some pretty thick white without fear of it taking 2 months to dry. Which, if any of you ever used titanium white before, you know it's a very slow drying color. All right, now I have a problem on my hands. Since I put the red up there, I don't think I've ever done this before. I'm going to do something. I'm going to put a shield right here to cover up the red. I'm going to take this dry brush. Yes, that worked. Do it again. All right. Did you see how I did that, ladies and gentlemen? I absolutely must emphasize when you're doing this stroke through blending thing, whatever you want to call that I just did, which I think is very effective. You must do it. You must do it. Don't even, well, if you want to just have a crappy, do a test to prove if I'm right. If you do that slow and timidly, it will look like crap. Forgive my French. It will look terrible. You must do it with strength, energy, and then I catch my students saying, "Oh, I get it. Forgive me," because I'm not picking on my students. Hello. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Ooh, something for me. Actually, a piece to the microwave. Hang on just a second. Let me toss this in the house. Alicia, yeah. The microwave part's here. It's on the couch. All right. The responsibilities of home ownership continue. So after I was in my last class, after I was teaching, that you had to do that with great gusto and speed. Then I had some students who are going, "Phew," like this. No. Is the screen big enough? No, let me go big so you can see. I'm not going to do it now because I'm not, but it's like this. Boom! Look at, my arm is fully extended. You can't go like this. That's a great example of what I mean. You cannot paint like a scaredy cat and expect to have a good painting. You can't go, forgive me for overacting. I am being dramatic because I want you to paint good. I want you to paint really good. Therefore, you can't be all timid-y. I know this is, is it, am I just reflecting my personality? And you might say, well, I am a timid person and I want to paint more like me. Let me think about that for a minute. No. No. You're not supposed to be a timid person. Introverted? I'm an introvert, by the way. I shock people this all the time. I am an introvert. I am not kidding. I used to say I was a high-functioning introvert. Then a personality professional person rebuked the heck out of me. Which rebuke I will never forget. Okay, let's get back to painting. I am an introvert. As much as I love talking while I'm painting and broadcasting, it takes energy out of me. So it gives, conversely, it puts energy into me. So it's a balance. I have to keep it in balance. I'm coming back now with a palette knife for what I want to be possibly the lightest area on this entire painting might be those little marks right there. Now that may not be the case, but in theory, at least in my mind, that is the case. And do you see how that dragging, can you see it well enough? Yeah, I'm sure you can. See how dragging and you have to do it fast. You have to do it with all your energy and all your whole body. It's not a little. Now, of course, this is part of the reason why I like painting large, by the way, because you can really, let her rip on a large painting, which you don't have that kind of freedom on a small painting. So you have to. But even on a small painting, though, let me quickly add, because some of you are saying, "Oh yeah, I'm doing small paintings." No. I still do these big movements when I'm painting small. It's just on the large paintings I can, as I say, really let her rip. And I think that's why I like painting large so much, because the history of human movement is so much more transparent or manifest. It's been a long time since I did my history of human movement lecture. I'm not sure that I want to get into it right now, but I will again. It's an entire teaching It's very close to the. By the way, I'm giving a lecture. When is it? Is it tomorrow night? Thursday. 2 nights. In 2 nights, and I will broadcast. By the way, I'm giving a lecture in Cary, a nearby town, sort of like a suburb of Raleigh, and I'm calling it. I've already had to report to them what it is I plan to say, and I'm calling it the quest for beauty, and that my basic outline will be this outline, this diagram that includes the history of human movement. So I don't mean throughout history. I mean, when I make a mark like this, I'm leaving a history. That's what I mean, and that's as far as I want to go with that right now. So let's move on. So I've painted the railing there. All right, now once again, I find myself in a good teaching moment, an important principle to state. I'm going to put verticals, and by the way, all of this compared to the photograph, I've expanded all of this overpass. It's much fatter and more detailed in my painting than it is in real life. In real life, this railing would be about 1/8 of an inch away from the top, and the little verticals are almost invisible. As you well know, you regulars, my goal here is not to. I'm in the second half of my art journey. Let me repeat that real quickly, even though I beat that thing to death just yesterday. First half art journey is learning how to paint stuff that looks like stuff. Second half of art journey, this is brand new verbiage as of yesterday. Second half of the art journey is learning how to paint stuff that looks like painting instead of stuff. So one of the principles is anytime that you have a highly repeated, oft repeated motif, I know I'm borrowing that term mostly from the music world, but it also applies to the visual art world. A motif is a repeated pattern. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Motif. Did it twice. In fact, he does that motif. He does it backwards, upside down, inside out. Beethoven Symphony Number 5. One of the most famous motifs in all of music history. Bum, 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 bum. That's a motif. So in visual art, a motif is something that's repeated. In this case, it's the verticals, the railing, whatever you call these supports to the railing. Okay, and the principle, and I'm struggling to get around to saying, is whenever you have a highly repeated or oft repeated, much repeated motif in a painting, it is important that you figure out many different techniques, manners for rendering that motif. Because if I just get up here and paint every one of these things in the same way, it will just look horrible. And so what you see me doing here is I did a number of them like normal with a brush. Then I did a couple with a palette knife. Bum, bum, bum. Then I did some by scratching. And now I'm going to pick up, I'm going to pick up a stick, oil stick. So I have now 4 different methods that I've used to render the same thing. They're all the same in reality. In real life, they're all built concrete whatever you call them, supports the same way. But I've used 4 different techniques to render them. Why? Because variety is probably the single greatest element. When I say what are interesting marks, the essence of good painting is making interesting marks. And the essence of interestingness, at the core of interestingness, is variety. Oh, that's looking good. And again, all you artists understand, when an artist says that, he or she is not bragging. They are rejoicing. Woe be to the foolish artist who thinks that they can take credit for the beauty that appears on their canvas. I guess that's a great line. I should remember that. This should be part of my presentation on Thursday night. I don't think I've ever said it that way before, honestly. Woe be to the foolish, egotistical artist that thinks the beauty that mysteriously appears on their canvas, that they did that. No, what you did is you set up an environment where beauty can happen. But whether it happens or no is almost out of your hands. I'm getting really, really spooky right now, aren't I? Some of you are getting a little bit nervous. All right. Oh my goodness. Does that look nicer than it did 20 minutes ago? I'm standing back now and taking a look at it. I'm going to take a quick break here. Partly just to get my nose out of it, back up so I can see this. Oh my goodness, is that sweet? That's what I think right now. This painting, by the way, is mine to lose at this point. That is, if I could just keep from screwing up, this would be a great painting. This will be far and away my best, and I've done this scene a dozen times, never this big, but it'll be far and away my best skyline of Raleigh from the south. Again, partly because it's so large, but partly because I'm a better artist than I was last week, right? And hopefully next week I'll be a better artist than I am today. All right, quick break. Thanks for watching. I'll be back in a few minutes, and I'll catch your chats then. Oh wait, will I? Won't I? Hang on just a second. I'm having some problems with my monitor. Oh, a whole bunch of chats. Hang on here. Let's take care of this before I go, and then I'll respond to you guys before I take a break. Thanks so much for watching, and I really appreciate your chats. It's a lot of fun. Thinker888, you asked some good questions. I don't know who you are. Send me a line sometime. Tell me where you are on Facebook or something. I'd love to see who you are. Says, hey, Dan, looks great. Did you use Neo McGilp on the fuzz layer? No. It's a very good question. I did not. It was slow enough dry. It was mostly straight out of the tube. So that was slower dry than the liquid that's underneath it. Great question. For you newcomers, I don't have it here, but yeah, tomorrow or the next day when I do another glaze over the whole painting, perhaps I'll either use Neo McGilp or Walnut Alkyd, which is a much slower dry than liquid, because the thicker you get, the more layers you do, the slower the drying has to be. That's the real meaning of fat over lean. But as I've said, get rid of that expression, fat over lean. It's confusing. The real issue is slow over fast. Good question, Thinker888. David, what is a painting for? Funny you should ask that. Oh my goodness, okay, I'm in a shift in my career, a 15-year shift. I've been painting fast and small, like 30 by 40 small, understand, for 15 years, but fast, 200 paintings a year, and more like 300 or 400 pieces of art per year, just to give you a guideline. In the last month or and a half, I've shifted to slow painting, big and slow. And this afternoon I had a key meeting with I have to be careful how I'm going to say this, one of my favorite gallery owners in the world. I was going to her to collect all my small paintings and to get her counsel, wisdom, and advice, because I trust her greatly. But at the same time, yes, she offered to represent me in this new world. So as of 2 hours ago, as of an hour and a half ago, as soon as I finish this, it has a home and a gallery in downtown Raleigh, and hopefully it'll be sold from there. Hey, Dwayna, you commented earlier from Colorado. Nice to see you again. Nancy, appreciate the comment. Hey, Mark, I looked you up on Facebook. Nice to see you. You're just as nice a guy as you sound like online. Thanks for watching. And thank you, Michael. I appreciate that very much. Nice comment. I do philosophize. All the people that don't like it, they're gone. I'll dry them off. The guy talks too much. It's my party. I'll talk if I want to. Hey, Adrian. Well, thank you for joining me. Just hang around, man. Just keep watching. You'll learn a lot. Is it a remake? No, it's not a remake. I have done this scene, mostly setting up my easel on this road right here, many times over the years. Maybe as much as a dozen times over the last 20 years. But no, this is a brand new painting. Good question. Michael says again, do you think it's easier painting on a larger canvas or smaller? Does it really matter? Or have you done it because you have changed the way you paint? Michael, what I've done is I've decided finally that I'm old enough woohoo, to start following my heart. My heart has always been in big paintings. 20 years ago, before I started painting for galleries, I routinely did 8 by 10 foot paintings in live event settings. Routinely. That my canvas was 8 by 10 feet. And so that's where my heart's always been. But it's hard to sell them because most people want small paintings. But I've just decided to try anyway. So that's because I love painting, because I can move. I think that's the main reason I like painting large. And Thinker, second question, do you ever use zinc white? Good question. Let me answer that. No, I don't. When I was starting oil painting 20 years ago, I bought something to play around with it. Excuse me, my nose is itching. That's very uncool, I know, but so is having an itchy nose. Okay, let me describe the difference. Zinc is weak. I do that on purpose all the time. Here it is again. Zinc is weak. It's a weak white. Some people call it a mixing white. But I say just buy titanium and use less of it. So that's me. I'm sure there's some fabulous painters out there that praise zinc white to the heavens. I don't. I haven't used it in nearly 20 years because I like titanium. I like the strong. Oh, so zinc is weak and titanium is titanium. Strong. You got it. So I use titanium because it's partly economic. I like it. It's less, if you use zinc, you have to use more of it. Good question. Very good question. Yeah, an introverted comedian. That's exactly right. And Chaos Theory. Thank you, man. Thanks for joining me. Good to have you commenting. I appreciate it. Hey, Jay and IL Studio. All this in Beethoven too. Yes. Susan from California. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. Jay, do you ever varnish? Man, you guys are asking great questions, and I'm trying to take a break here. Yes, all paintings should be varnished. Picture varnish, any kind, spray on or brush on. All paintings should be varnished. I never varnish my paintings. Slight exaggeration. Here's why. This painting's done this week. It's in a gallery the next day. They have to varnish it, or the buyer has to varnish it. But if you own real original artwork, absolutely it must be varnished. I think this is one of the tragedies of our current art culture. See, I would have to hang on to a painting for 6 months. If I was a millionaire, I could do that, but I'm not. So I can't hang on to my paintings for 6 months and then varnish them. When I do have paintings that have been around for a while, I love them. I love how it looks when they're varnished. But it's very important to keep the paint safe from all the corruptive elements in the air. We're doing this for our posterity, unless you have a stove on a fire on your stove, or a fire in your dryer, or if you're a smoker. Oh my goodness, if you're anybody smokes in your house, you have to have your paintings varnished. If you have a fireplace, absolutely imperative that your paintings be varnished. They are being destroyed. If you're a smoker, fireplace, and they're at risk of being damaged heavily if you just by having a grease fire or something on your stove. So get those things varnished. Picture varnish, not furniture varnish. Picture varnish. It's a temporary covering, and in 100 years, when we're all dead, somebody that knows what they're doing, an art restorer will come, peel off the old varnish out, and they go, "Oh, look how beautiful!" And then they put new varnish on, and it's safe for another 100 years. Okay, that's the way that works. Yes, they all must be varnished. Yeah, Susan, I was glad to hear that this gallery. It's ironically funny, isn't life funny? It's the gallery I started with. The one gallery I started with 15 years ago when I started working in galleries is the only one I'm going to be in at this point. So, oh, and Bruno says, Bruno always comes through with some really good technical information. Thank you, Bruno. Zinc oil tends to crack. I did not know that. So zinc is wink and it cracks. Thank you, Bruno. All right, I'm going to go take a quick break, and I'll be back in just a few minutes. Testing 1, 2, 3. There we go. I think we're on, friends. We're broadcasting. Hola, Marty Franz says. Good to have you on board. So I enjoyed taking a little break. Now, I just uncovered a drawing mistake. Now there's no getting around this one. So there's sunlight here, shadow, and light here. There needs to be a shadow. This is one of those. Okay, so I rarely approve of erasing. This is one case, though, where I'm going to. But the key thing is I'm not going to turn my creative brain off. And by all means, I don't let what I call the spirit of eraser come on me. The spirit of eraser makes you go, you're cursing yourself, you're mad at yourself. None of that. None of that. In fact, you stay in your painter mind. You stay in your painter brain. So you're now painting with a rag. You're not erasing. That's the terminology I usually use. All right, that might fix it right there. Let's see if it does. If this comes down here, see, I have one shadow back here and one here, but that's not right. So I do have to make yet another change. So this is me cheating the system, if you will. What I mean by that, according to the system, once you've entered light opaque highlights, you don't go back and do dark transparent details. That's the theory. That's the model. But of course, every model can be broken. It's not there to make you obey it. It's just there to give you guidelines. So I find that I need to add, I think, another shadow line in here. Make that a little greener. Painting in my technique, which is layers and layers and layers of transparent color, it does make making corrections late in the process makes them particularly difficult, because you don't want it to look like something you stuck on at the last minute. So you just have to treat it with special care, which I'm trying to do right here. All right, I think I dodged that bullet. Now this shadow up here needs to be thinner, so. Ah, more dark. My problem is growing instead of increasing. Instead of decreasing, it's increasing. So bear with me while I try to. Let me try that for a while. One of the things I'm enjoying about this, what I think is my new season of painting, is that I'm actually going to take the time late in the process to catch and fix things like that. It was little mistakes, if you will, like that in my earlier season of painting, which was, 200 paintings a year, paint like a madman, paint like crazy, just get her done, get it out the door. And I'm very glad, by the way, that I took that path on my journey. The goal was to learn how to paint as quickly as possible. And I gave myself 15 years, basically. So I've been painting in this style, if you will, 15 years, which is not a long time as life goes, right? Now, I hope that I'll be able to paint it a lot longer, but. I'm going to let it go at that for now and may come back and correct it more tomorrow. So I'm painting here with it looks like white paint, probably looks a lot like white paint to you guys, but it is quite a dirty white. It is not perfectly white by any means. And of course that leaves me headroom, if you will, to do that trick that I described up here in the red and the white, where I come back with a lighter color. I do that everywhere. Make sense? That trick, if you will, that technique of putting down a color, then coming back and putting down a slightly lighter color right on top of the color you just put down. Therefore, yes, it's quite important that the color I'm putting down, even though, again, it looks white to you guys, it's quite a dirty white. It has oxide red and ultramarine in it and a little bit of yellow ochre. So it's dirtied up, not even just warmed up, but like with a yellow, but it's actually got blue in it. So slight grayish, if you will. And it looks quite white to me as well, standing here. But as soon as I come back with a definitely lighter color, it'll go, oh, I guess that wasn't white. That's the way it works. Now, let me leave that area and move on over here. I have to do the same redrawing process over here, aren't I? Because these shadows need to line up. Oh boy, that is the, if you will, the main hazard of painting really fast is you can't think about everything all at once. So, but I'm not apologizing for it. I still think it's a good trick, good way to paint. Paint fast and then make corrections. In my opinion, better than painting slow, so slow. We have a car there, a couple cars there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 vehicles at the moment, I think. It's subject to change, of course. And I want it barely discernible. I want people to almost, especially here, say, is that a car? Or is that one car or 2 cars? That's in my opinion, the right degree of abstraction. At that size, that's related to another principle that I experienced a lot when I was doing graphic design, or when I do graphic design. It's another, you've heard, there's a lot of 80-20 rules, so this is another one. Here's another 80-20 rule. I'll just start with it. You want about 20% of your audience to not discern or see what it is you're doing in a painting. You want about 20% of your audience to miss the finer points. I know that sounds very like, what? That's the point the reason I'm saying it. You want about 20% of the viewing audience to not get it. So in this case, like, not discern that those are cars. That specifically in this case. When you're designing a logo for a company, you want about 20% of the people who look at that logo to not see the trick in the logo, the visual hook. And again, that is, hello, ladies. Welcome. Hey, Mom. I'm good. How do you like it?
Looking good, looking good. Wow.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Look at that.
Wow, it's good.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful, beautiful. Is that
Thanks.
commission?
No, it is not. No. But it has, as of this afternoon, though, it has a place to go, so that's good.
Really?
Yeah, to Wendy's, to Bev's, or Centerpiece Gallery, whichever. Yeah, so that's good.
That is good. Yep. Very, very good. Wow, that's a huge painting.
It is pretty big, isn't it? Mm-hmm. I hope it's shades of things to come. I hope it's the size I get to paint from now on. Because I really like painting big. Thank you. A little bit of pale green. Perhaps, if you've watched me for any length of time at all, you've heard me say before that green is a very dangerous color. Because of the way our eyes, our retinas are made, you've in high school biology or something, you learned about rods and cones, probably, maybe even in middle school biology. You learned about rods and cones. Rods see light and dark, cones see color. But my observation as an artist is that there's some bleed over, some crossover, that cones also see light and dark to a degree. And we perceive green as a lighter color, not value, but lighter color, and value, translating into lighter value. Therefore, green always is very aggressive to your eyeball. So I'm using that. That's usually a weakness in painting. When I'm judging paintings, that is one of the biggest mistakes made by landscape painters. Is their greens are way too intense and aggressive. But in this case, I'm actually using that to my advantage. I want this green to be very aggressive, if you will, because this is the focal I want, because I want the energy. Make sense? No, I'm gonna mess up a little bit of what I just did there. And this is not erasing. This is painting with a rag. Now, there's one other detail in this part of the painting. I'm gonna move my photographs out of the way a little bit. So, do you perceive that the way I've decided to tackle the final edit layer of this painting is by starting at the focal point, and as I said in my description, that's the bullseye, and then you move out in the rings of the target from the bullseye. So that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm not slave to that. I'm not bound to that. I don't have to continue, but right now it's working for me very well. I just started right here and just started moving out. So just want to point that out, that's what I'm doing. And before I leave, then this bullseye, I'll use that terminology, before I leave the bullseye of the painting, I'm going to paint a lot of things, if you will. Okay, and in the photograph, there are all these light poles, street light poles. This spatula won't do. I might actually have to use a palette knife in a traditional manner. That'd be a shock to the old system. Okay, and I am looking at the photograph here for you can see I already have several of these ghosted in the underpainting, but I can either completely ignore those or paint on top of them. You know, I can re-accentuate them, if you will. The choice is mine, so to speak. And some of them I will almost certainly leave ghosted as hints. It just creates a delightful visual vibration or tension. I don't want them all to be as obvious or manifest, if I can use that word, not all as clear as this. Once again, even that could be an example of I want about 20% of my viewers to miss stuff. Now, you may ask why? Don't you want everybody to get it? Don't you want everybody to see your brilliant artwork ideas? The answer is no. Here's why. Okay, so this will help you a lot. If you're a painter, pay attention. Now, if you're a graphic designer, oh my goodness, it's even more important for you. Because many times, the boss man in the corner office, in fact, belongs to the 20%. Then it gets very politically tricky. When you're designing a logo for a corporation, it's very often the boss man who's in the corner office is not very visually astute. Now, he doesn't know that because he's good at making business decisions, and he's probably good at making money. Because he's good at making money, he makes the common mistake that goes with the gift of making money, which is, I must be good at everything. And they, in fact, are not good. Often, the visual acuity, if I can use that word again, visual acuity and business acumen are often mutually exclusive categories. Anyway, so let me answer the question. So why do you want a certain percentage? Like I use the example, I don't want everybody to discern that those are vehicles or that that's a car. It's just a bad example, but it's one that's right in front of me. Why don't I want everybody to see that that's like that line right there is a ghosted in lamppost that I didn't finish? The reason is this. You ready? Why do I want about, and this is not a scientific number. I'm not sure what the real number is. It might be 10%. It might be 40%. I don't think it's 40, but I want a significant portion of the population, a significant portion, so I'm saying 20% of the population to, in a sense, be in the dark. Now, here's why. Because in my opinion, in my observation as an artist, is that about 20% of the population first of all, they're not visually astute. They do not have high visual acuity. In fact, tests are out. They probably don't see as many colors as I see. Yeah, take the probably out of there. If I were to say to them, what color are those shadows on my driveway? They'd say, gray. And I'd say, well, yeah, but don't you see the blue? And then they go, no. And I think they're telling the truth. Add that example ad nauseum. So there's certain, because we're all good at different things, right? We're all bad at different things. Oh my goodness. Thank God. One of the best things about getting old, you know what one of the best things about getting old is? You're relieved of the feeling and the pressure that you have to be good at everything, especially as a man. When you're a young man, you're supposed to be good at everything. Woohoo! One of the great parts about getting old is, oh, I don't have to be good at everything? Hallelujah, I wasn't good at everything anyway. I'm just so glad I can let that illusion go. All right, so there's a certain percent of the population they're just not good at looking at stuff. And you know what? They don't really give a flippin' rip. They don't really care. If they're part of the group that doesn't see blue in that shadow, they go, my life's fine. I don't miss it. I don't miss a thing. They're probably athletes. I'm picking on athletes here. They're probably business people. They're probably real good at interpersonal relationships. There's a lot of areas of human endeavor. Are you with me? So I'm not saying these people are not by any means inferior. They're just different. Everybody sees. So given that a significant percentage of the population doesn't see very well, I don't mean their vision is bad. I just mean they don't see what I see, what probably most of you, if you're an artist watching me, what you see. A certain percent of the population doesn't see very well. Secondly, they don't really care. If you paint in a manner or design logos, say in graphic design, if you paint in order to satisfy or reach those kinds of people, are you with me? If you paint so dumb, if you dumb down your painting so everybody can see it, here's what you do. So you satisfy the 20%, by the way, who doesn't care that you stretched to reach them. You with me? The other 80% of the population, especially the 20 way at the other end, they are bored stiff with your artwork. That artwork is stupid. That painting is stupid. It is so obtuse. It's so juvenile, simple, blah, blah. Does that make the point? So I'm just, again, most of you who are painting, you are on the visual end of this spectrum, high visual acuity. Enjoy that, rest in it, appreciate it, but don't try to reach people at the other end. So therefore, we're all tempted to try to reach everybody. Can't be done. Don't waste your time doing it, because if you reach the people who are at the bottom end, then you're boring to death the people at the top end. There. Wow. That was quite the sermon, wasn't it? Somebody needed to hear that. And it's a great, great, great relief to discover that you don't have to paint to please everybody. You can't please everybody. And if you do try to please people who are unpleasable almost in the visual sense, then you're losing the people who actually can get pleasure from your artwork. So you don't want to do that. And when it comes to doing commercial work and designing logos for the man in the Oval Office, it does get very, very tricky. In fact, while I'm on the subject, just for what it's worth, why does an ad agency, a normal ad agency, charge a big company to design a logo or design a new logo? They'll charge $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 for a new logo. Do you know why? I'm going to let you in on a dirty little secret. It's not because, if it's a good agency, they have artists on staff who could design a killer logo in an afternoon. That's not what you're paying for. What you're paying for is all the political flim-flam, rigmarole, jumping through hoops that the ad agency has to do to convince the visual, unsophisticated boss man, boss woman in the corner office that this is a good logo. That's why they pay. So they have focus groups and they have research and so they just have to, almost in a way, play act. Like it's taking us all this time, take us weeks, take us months to design this logo. One of their artists, a good artist, could design a killer logo in an afternoon. But the boss man would go, well, you know, I'm not really sure about, and the boss man would kill it. So that's why they have to pay. If there's any boss men out there listening, I am telling you the truth. You want to save your company tens of thousands of dollars, just get your butt out of the art department and let the people who are good artists tell you what to do. There's a little bit of bitterness in that. If you knew some of the crap I've gone through, you would understand. Every graphic designer right now is either laughing or groaning, saying, that is so right. There you go. For those of you who, part of life that you probably never knew anything about. All right, let's see if you just never know. You just never know where Dan Nelson's going. Oh boy. All right, that looks kind of cool, don't you think? So, am I wide enough? Yeah, I am. Just wide enough. You can see all those. Where to go next? Oh, good. I still have my red brushes. I see. I want to do a little, fade out here into the bushes, maybe down here too. Right, because it's trees or foliage that's coming up and blocking off the ends of that bridge. So if it's foliage, it doesn't end with a hard stop, right? It kind of fades out. You have sky holes. Again, the wrongly named sky holes. Shouldn't be called sky holes. They should be called tree holes. I've ranted and raved about that enough in recent years, weeks, months, so I won't go there again today. Oh, thank God, say my regulars. He goes on these tirades. I don't know what we're going to do with him. He keeps repeating himself, says the same thing over and over and over again. We understand each other, don't we? I repeat in Portuguese. Repete, 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 repete. Repeat, repeat, repeat. And you guys pretend you like me. We got it all worked out. You newcomers, don't disrupt things. We got it all worked out. So at the moment, I'm doing taillights of cars. See, they're coming into the curve. They're coming into downtown, so they got their brake lights on. That gives me a good excuse to do some of my favorite things in the world is brake lights. I've never exactly said that before. That's kind of funny. I do like painting brake lights, so brake lights and traffic lights. These are a few of my favorite things. Okay, I think before I go out any further, I think it can already come, and I've got really small brushes here. They might be too small, but since they're already dirty, let's see if I can use them. I'm going to come into this area that has white on it and do the trick that I described earlier, and I describe all the time, which is follow up with a slightly lighter version of what's already there. So what was already there was fairly white, slightly dirty white. Now, what's on my brushes right now is almost pure white titanium, just a little bit dirty because They're picking up what's underneath and so on. So let's see if it looks good. That's the question. Always, you always paint with your eyes. You don't paint by rules. You're always looking and asking yourself, how does that look, really? You don't paint by rule. The rules help you greatly, but the final judge is always your eyeballs, your eyes, your brain, of course, is what I'm really saying, is the seeing part of your brain. It almost doesn't matter where you put this slightly lighter value. It can go almost anywhere. It doesn't really matter. Just the fact that you're putting lighter, slightly lighter on top of what is already light. That's what looks good. That's what, sparkle is a good word. Some people use the word sparkle for this kind of stuff. That's a good description. And of course, I'm going to keep it pretty focused, pretty concentrated to real close to the focal point of this painting. By the way, for what it's worth, part of the reason I think that this is going to be the main focal point in this painting is because of the way this road feels. And again, I wish you could stand here and experience, down here at the base, it's this wide, it's 6 feet wide. And the sweeping curve that draws us into the scene is so compelling, feels so good right here. That's part of the reason why I'm thinking that I really am accentuating that entree, that entrance, that S formation, Z form, S, is it a Z? It's a Z technically. I get mixed up. S goes that way, Z goes that way, that's right. Classic compositional trick. And here again, I've got some titanium white on my brushes. Now, of course, with titanium white, if while you're doing this, you discover that what's on your brushes is slightly darker than what's already there, then whoa, stop. Do not proceed with that. Dark, opaque paint that is darker than what's already on the canvas, that's mud. I have discovered in recent months that there are other schools of thought, perhaps, other people who teach something different is mud. Let me not get defensive, but let me be a good teacher. Some people say, mud, no. Mud is when you put down one layer of wet paint and then you come, while that's still wet, and try to put another layer on and it all mixes together. Fine, yes, if you want to call that mud, that's fine. It is muddy in texture. The badness of it is the mixing together. But let me tell you why I'm going for the more sophisticated. No, I don't mean to. That sounds like superior. The more subtle definition of mud. Because the reason is because the most subtle issue is the most difficult. Here's what I mean. You've done a painting, and oh my goodness, I have a painting in my attic right now that I did 20 years ago. And for the life of me, there's a bunch of horses, and I couldn't figure out why this one horse looked muddy. They were all brown horses, all different colors of brown horses, and one looked muddy because I didn't know this principle. So the reason I'm sticking with the more esoteric definition of mud is because it's the one that makes you scratch your head and go, I don't get it. So the one where you're mixing wet on wet on wet, yeah, that's a problem. Don't do that. And that is mud, but that's easy. The answer is don't do that. Are you with me? Some people say, in fact, Richard Schmid says mud is misuse of color temperature. And as you know, Richard Schmid is one of my gods. I admire him greatly. But in this regard, he's wrong. I guess he's not quite a god then. I do respect him very highly. And what he says about color temperature is absolutely right and absolutely worth heeding. But the solution to Richard Schmid's, you'll have to read the book to get it, it's color temperature issue. Don't do it. That's easy. My mud that I'm talking about, it's like a mystery. It's like, I don't get it. I didn't violate any of these obvious color temperatures right, colors right. It's not, you know, hodgepodge mix layers on the canvas, not any of that, and it still doesn't look right. And all I'm going to say is, as soon as you're finished here, as soon as we're finished, or even before, go back out of YouTube, do a search for Dan Nelson mud, and I've got about a 11-minute video that explains it. And it's an issue of, it's the misuse of opacity. And that's the mysterious kind of mud that all the other kinds are rather obvious, okay? And they're correct. Don't do that mixing, you know? Yeah, but that's an easy, just don't do it. Even Richard Schmid's solution is don't confuse your color temperatures. The one that I'm talking about is the one that's like, after you've done everything right, it still doesn't look right. That's because it's an opaque problem, all right? In my humble opinion, all the old timers watching me, all the regulars go, don't believe him. I mean, there's not a bit of humble in him. Oh, come on, yeah, there's some humble in there, way down deep where you can't see it very well. I'm a really humble guy. Okay, so I'm moving out now, somewhat bravely, tenuously, carefully, thoughtfully, moving out away from the highest energy focal point, I think. So, of course, that means that as I move away from this area, the energy will decrease. So energy, this is not, I'm not writing this, so I'm not sure, but energy is contrast, hard edges, intense color, sight line and composition placement, and psychological. So there's 5, I think that was 5, elements that affect how intense the energy is for any given part of the painting. So as I move out from this area, generally speaking, I will use slightly less contrast, slightly less hard edges, slightly less intense color, slightly careful about the composition, sight lines. So sight line, for instance, here we go. I was talking about this earlier and didn't have a good example. Well, here it is. It's this sweep, especially as you stand here, you can't quite get the sense from a little monitor, but the sweep is quite dramatic and feels very cool. It's, whoa, brings me in. So that's a big part. That's a sight line. That's a compositional issue. So I don't want other parts of the painting to compete with that. Now, having said that, however, there will be, definitely in this painting, there'll be other parts of the painting, am I out? I am, that will have fairly high degrees of energy, fairly high. And there's the magical balance. There's the there's the rub. That's the hard part. They can be fairly high energy, and how high, won't know till I get there, right? That's one reason for starting in the focal point, moving out. This is just one approach to the final edit. So it could be, and again, I love using the word energy because that encompasses all of these issues. I just saw something just then that I want to fix. Hey, let me while I've got you. I don't have any of you. But okay, here's my palette. Right, let me zoom in. I'm going to talk about palette, one aspect of palette, just for a minute. Okay, I'm in the right place. There we go. Okay, so these are my colors. This just want to point out this. I do rainbow order, starting with purple, then cool red, warm red, orange, Indian yellow, warm yellow, and then Indian yellow. I mean, I don't mean that at all. Lemon yellow or Hansa yellow or cad yellow, and all of those are imitations because I don't need the cadmiums, and nobody can tell the difference between a cad imitation yellow, and you can in red and orange, but you can't in yellow, in my opinion. So, but this cool, cold yellow, now to some of you, see, you didn't know there's such a thing as a cold yellow, but you're looking at it right here. It's a Hansa yellow, lemon yellow, or cad yellow light. The only reason this paint, this color is on my palette is to interact with greens. If I want a warm yellow, which is most of the time I do, this is like a cad yellow medium imitation, and I go this way for warm, this way for cool. This color right here in the corner, it's in the corner on purpose for me, because it's actually the transition from yellow to, or from warm to cool. Isn't that weird? Some of you think, no, yellow. I was taught that yellow is warm. Well, it is, but there are warms and cool warms. Okay, now I just realized I was missing an opportunity right down here for some colder, more intense, even more intense chartreuse than what I've had up until now. So I'm going to mix more titanium white with that. So what I'm mixing up is a very cool and very light, very pale chartreuse, spring green, very bright green. Again, why? Because all of a sudden I saw, oh wait, it makes sense, visual sense, to have more energy right there. I was just talking about energy, and my eye caught that and said, wait, I'm missing an opportunity here. All right, let's march outward. Oh, before, which means I want to do some on this tree. Again, let me tell you what I'm not doing then. In this particular painting, now remember, there's 3 different valid approaches to the final edit. One is start with the sky, valid. One is start with the lightest, brightest, whitest thing. And third is start with the focal point. Now, often 2 of those will converge, as they do here. Lightest, brightest, whitest, and focal point. So that's why I chose to start here. But you'll notice, like, I've got a lot of white here, or off-white, really. A little bit of white. One logical way to paint would be, while I've got this light, almost white stuff on my brushes, I should just go ahead and paint everywhere where that color appears. That would be logical, but probably not advisable. Again, because I don't know how much energy. See, all this part of the painting down here in my wide angle? Yeah, I am. All this part of the painting, it might be completely finished, but I won't know until I march out there. Does that make sense? So rather than, taking one color and just going all over the canvas with it, which would be a logical thing to do, instead of that, I'm starting in the middle and working out, if you will, all the issues. So part of the reason I'm pointing that out is now I've mixed up a cool red, kind of a pinkish. It's permanent rose, mostly permanent rose, a little scarlet lake, and titanium white for these crepe myrtles. Now, again, some of you, if you're other parts of the world or other parts of the country, you may not know what crepe, C-R-E-P-E, crepe crepe myrtles. Again, beautiful trees, and have these red to fuchsia, magenta colored blooms much of the summer. So all I'm doing here is I just want to go ahead and do this here. Now, let me address something, because some of you were saying, well, I thought you said, and I did. All rules can be broken. If you don't think there are any rules, either you're playing word games with me, which some teachers do, or you're a bad painter. Those are the two options. There are rules. Usually what the no rule people say, here's what, I've said this so many times, forgive me. They say, you show me a rule. Again, I have to go into this mocking tone of voice. It's just a defect in my character, okay? So here's what they say. They say, you show me a rule, and I'll show you a great painting that breaks it. Check. No argument, of course. Just because, why? Because the name of my series that I'm going to produce, hopefully soon, is called The Breakable Laws of Painting. Every law can be broken. So I'm at one of those right now. Because here's one of the rules, if you will, of painting. Don't just finish one area. Paint the whole canvas, bring the whole canvas to fruition, to fulfillment, to finish as much as possible all together. You paint the whole canvas. You know that rule? It's a good one. You should do it. Never break that rule. Here I am breaking it. Why? So when do you break a rule of painting? The answer is when this rule comes into a head-on collision with another rule. You have to decide which one is going to give way. And in this case, I'm violating that rule about painting evenly. Why? Because there's another rule that says start at the focal point and move out little by little. Otherwise, you don't know how much energy is supposed to go into all these other. Do you see? Two conflicting rules. That's why rules break, because you have to pick which one you're going to go with. And in this case, by the way, that other rule about bringing a painting up uniformly through the whole, great rule, do that. Unless, of course, it conflicts with a rule that you think, in this case, trumps that rule. Which, okay, does that make sense? Yeah, I teach that rule thunderously, as you can tell. The way I teach everything else, thunderously. All right. Isn't this fun? So I just put this color red all over here, right? You with me? What am I going to do next? Right, I'm going to mix up a slightly lighter version of that color and come back and do little bits of it on top of what's already there. Whew. This is one of those rules in painting, if you will, guidelines, that almost always works. And there's not that many that you can say that about. This is one. That being, you put down a color in the opaque realm. When you're in opaque painting, you put down a color, you follow up with a slightly lighter color on top of that. All right. Yeehaw. I've finished, except for the cars, and I'm just not sure that mentally, physically, emotionally, I feel up to tackling them right now. That's okay. I'm just letting you know. You know, it's 5:15. It's been a long day. I've had a lot of good, but stuff that's taken energy out of me today. I don't have to do this, especially in this new way that I'm painting, which is I'm going to be working on this painting tomorrow. For the last 15 years, it's been no. I'm going to finish this painting today. So that's part of this new era for me. Is I don't have to finish today. I'm going to take time to get it right. So I'm just giving you a nice tip, and that is when you find yourself just getting a little weary, you don't have to tackle something. This is a little bit technical. I just don't feel up to it right now. So I'm going to leave that. There's other stuff. I think I'm going to go straight up that way, I think. Nope, I'm not. I changed my mind right then. Happiness is. I'm going to pursue this line down here. These sky holes. Again, they did not, whoever they are, they did not invite me to the committee meeting when the artists of the world decided, what should we call the holes in trees? The obvious correct answer should have been tree holes, but I was not invited, so it was passed by general consent that they should be called sky holes. I'm being facetious as I can be. I do have sky holes in this painting, way up there where there's sky behind the trees, and way up there where there's sky behind the trees. The reason they shouldn't be called sky holes is because I have the same exact thing happening down here, and it's not sky, it's a road. It's a road hole, doggone it. And if you don't think that sounds stupid, English is not your first language. Road hole. And forgive me. I was ranting and raving. I know that's hard to believe, but I was once I was ranting and raving. I was teaching a class of mostly ladies, which is typical for me. And I was ranting and raving about this principle. Nice ladies, you understand? Nice ladies. And one of them, I don't know which ones, the one in the back of the class said, whatever you do, don't let your donkeys loose. I'm sorry, you had to be there, I guess. But I'm talking about trees, building holes, road holes, bridge holes over here. That's as much as I'm going to say. Oh my goodness. That just tickled me so much. Nice ladies. Whatever you do, don't let your donkeys get loose. Those of you who don't understand that joke, go ask your mama. Don't you dare tell her that I said it, though. She won't let you watch my channel anymore. Oh, I'm sorry. That probably shows how bad a sense of humor that I have, that I think that is so funny. And again, these were nice ladies. Do you understand? Oh, all right. Isn't this fun? What I'm painting. I don't mean my inane babbling. That's not what's fun. What's fun is doing these. Okay. By the way, so this is what I'm doing right here is a classic example of what I mean. But here's my focal point up here, right? The further I get away from the focal point, the energy dial gets dialed down more. This right here, perfect example. So here, look I've got some pretty hard little sky holes, road holes here, pretty sharp edges. In fact, I might go, a little bit too sharp there, We do not want sky dots or road dots. Thank you, Mark. We want, all right, this is a great example. How far do I continue this treatment? And the answer is, God only knows. I don't, until I do it, I don't know. Does that make sense? I'm painting with my eye. At what point does this treatment, and I'm getting softer already, see? Hard, soft edges, painted, fuzzy, scumbling with the edge of my brush. Little tiny bit of slightly hard edges, but not much for variety. And the question is, how far do I continue this? And the answer, again, is nobody knows. Nobody knows. You don't know until you do it. Because it's your eye that will tell you, okay, it's time to dial way back. It's time to get softer. Okay, stop there. One more mark and it'll be too much. I'm not quite there yet. I'm not quite there. But I am definitely, does that make sense? That was just turned up as a great example of this particular technique. It's not the only way to paint, of course, but this particular approach of starting at the focal point and working out. I'm answering the question, if you will, let's say I'm painting, started here, but doggone it, I'm just getting tired of painting, you know, red, green, and white, for instance. So I want to paint some sky. Doggone it, I want to paint some sky. So I mix up some phthalo blue and I go up here. Why is that a mistake? Oh, how do I know all this stuff, by the way? Because I have screwed up in 1,700 different ways, more than you can imagine. I have done this mistake. And then discover later in the process, like, oh my goodness, too much energy up here. Does that make sense? That's why it's hard. Like, what if I get really impatient? I want to start painting this building. Mistake, because I don't know how much energy this building should receive until I've expanded out to the building, which actually isn't going to be not that long before I get out there, right? But even so, I'm not going to start painting that building because the chances of infusing it with too much energy, the chance of doing that is too great. So I'll just take my time. I'm going to march out little by little. And again, this right here, doing these road holes. Don't let your donkeys get loose. These road holes are a good example of that. And by the way, here's the nice thing about painting. If you don't have to, in my new season of life, I don't have to finish this afternoon. So actually, I get to come back and change my mind. I'd rather stop short today and then come back and add more tomorrow than go too far. So that's it. That's as far as I'm going to go. So all of this over here is completely acrylic underpainting. Look, it's got these big bold pencil marks in it. Very loose, very abstract, very even impressionistic is not the word, just pure abstract. If you cut this out, you could hardly tell that this is even supposed to be a crepe myrtle. But as we go this way, it's like, oh, I get it. Now I'm going to see it. That's probably a good place for me to stop today. I'm going to keep painting for a while without your wonderful company. Before I do that, I will certainly take a minute and look at your comments, which I enjoy very much. When I'm not broadcasting to you guys, I typically listen either to podcasts or YouTube broadcasts, and just for what it's worth, it tends to be science, history, philosophy, broadly speaking. I could give a flip and rip about pop culture. So if we play trivia together, you want me on your team when we're doing history and philosophy. When it comes to who's saying what when and the last biggest hit in the last movie, I am worthless. Viva la différence. Isn't it great? We're all different. So I'm going to here a minute. I'm going to prove that I'm an introvert by turning off. I've done enough broadcasting, done enough broadcast damage for one day, haven't I? Plus, I do have to watch. You know, we all have to watch out for overdoing it, just getting so deep into the moment that you just keep plowing through, and not really seeing what you're doing. That is a danger. So taking breaks is a good idea. So I'm going to follow that advice and do it. But first, let me look at your great chats. Whoa, somebody is chatting. I appreciate that. So let's see what you've said. Thank you, Nancy Smitherman. Nancy, I don't know where you're from, do I? I know you name very well. Bruno, I missed this earlier. He says, with Gamvar varnish from Gamlin, you don't have to wait 6 months. Thank you, Bruno. I don't know, somebody told me that some months ago, and then I lost it. So thank you. I am going to do that. This is the second time I've been told that, I appreciate that, Bruno. I don't know if you're still watching or not, because that was a while ago you said that. Huge. Thank you. Don't have to wait. It acts like a retouch varnish. It's still breathable or something, but still has the effect. Great, great, great. Thank you. I hope all the rest of you can figure out what Bruno is saying here. You don't have to wait 6 months if you use this particular kind of varnish, and that's huge. And Hans Peter, another friend from Germany. You and Bruno should meet each other. Hi, Nancy King. I'm glad you like this learning process. I appreciate that. And Marty Franz. Hola. Hola to you. And Igor Cornelius. Hello from Belgium. You are very welcome. Good to have you on board. I've never been to Belgium. Been to Germany and the Netherlands 2 or 3 times, I think, and France. So kind of been around you, partly, but would love to go to Belgium. Thank you much for joining us. And Karen says Pennsylvania's here. Thank you, Karen. Good to have you on board. And, oh, yeah. She says, my photos tend to look like billboards. Yeah, that's good. They do. That's funny. Look like billboards in the painting. Yeah, especially this one over here, doesn't it? That's funny. Good point. I know you weren't complaining, but that's funny. Good. And Terry Somerville says, looking good, Dan. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Always fun to have you here. You really do make my job more fun, because I'm a weird artist who enjoys an audience. That is so weird. I can't even explain that about myself. I just know that it's true. Happiness is getting old and finding out what you really like, what you don't like. So I like having you guys watch. If you like this, give me a thumbs up, give me a like, give me a subscription. If you don't like this, let's just keep that between you and me, shall we?